a Spanish warship carrying one of the largest fortunes in history. A massive explosion that sent billions of dollars to the bottom of the Caribbean Sea. A treasure hunters have searched for over 300 years. A shipwreck that's been found, but whose treasure no one can legally claim. This is the incredible true story of the San José, the treasure worth billions that the world still can't recover. Imagine someone told you there was a treasure worth more than $20 billion sitting at the bottom of the ocean. Not a legend, not a pirate fairy tale, not a fictional story from Hollywood. A real treasure, documented by governments, recorded in naval archives, and hunted for more than 3 centuries. The strange part isn't that the treasure exists. The strange part is that despite centuries of searching, advanced underwater robots, and millions of dollars spent on expeditions, no one has truly recovered or claimed it. This is the story of the San José, a Spanish treasure galleon whose fate became one of history's greatest maritime mysteries. And to understand why this treasure became so valuable, we first need to travel back to the early 1700s, when the world's richest empire was fighting to survive. At the beginning of the 18th century, Spain controlled one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. Its colonies stretched across much of South America, Central America, parts of North America, and the Philippines. But maintaining such an empire required enormous wealth. Every year, fleets of heavily armed treasure ships crossed the Atlantic, carrying gold, silver, emeralds, pearls, and other riches extracted from Spain's American colonies. Much of this wealth came from mines in present-day Peru and Bolivia, while emeralds were sourced from what is now Colombia. These treasures financed wars, paid soldiers, supported the Spanish monarchy, and fueled the empire's economy. But they also attracted powerful enemies. In 1701, Europe erupted into the War of the Spanish Succession. The conflict involved many of Europe's most powerful kingdoms, including England, the Dutch Republic, Austria, France, and Spain. Control over the Spanish throne would determine the balance of power across Europe. The war quickly spread beyond the continent. The Caribbean Sea became one of its most dangerous battlefields. Spanish treasure fleets were no longer simply merchant convoys. They became strategic military targets. Every shipment of gold and silver represented the financial lifeline of an empire. Whoever intercepted these ships could weaken Spain while enriching themselves beyond imagination. Among all these vessels, one ship stood above the rest: the San José. Launched in 1698, the San José was one of Spain's most heavily armed treasure galleons. Designed to protect valuable cargo, she carried dozens of cannons and was built to survive long voyages across the Atlantic. By 1708, she had been loaded with one of the richest cargoes ever assembled. Historical records indicate the ship was transporting vast quantities of silver coins, gold ingots, emeralds, and other precious goods collected from Spain's colonies. Modern estimates of the treasure's value vary widely, depending on how the cargo is valued, whether by the raw materials alone or by the historical significance of the artifacts. Some estimates exceed $20 billion. But before the San José could complete its journey to Spain, it disappeared, not in a storm, not because it lost its way, but during a violent naval battle that lasted only a few hours, a battle that changed history forever. What happened next wasn't just another naval battle. Within hours, one explosion would send a fortune to the bottom of the Caribbean Sea, where it would remain hidden for more than 300 years. And that single moment would create one of history's greatest treasure mysteries. For years, people have imagined that the San José was lost in a violent hurricane or simply vanished into the sea. But that's not what happened. Its final hours were witnessed. They were recorded by both the Spanish and the British. We know where the battle took place. We know who commanded the fleets. And we know that within a matter of hours, one of the richest ships ever built was gone. But one question has puzzled historians for more than 3 centuries. What actually caused the San José to explode? Let's go back to the evening of June 8, 1708. The San José left the port of Cartagena de Indias, in present-day Colombia, escorted by other Spanish vessels. Its destination was Europe. Aboard the San José were not only sailors and soldiers, but also merchants, officers, and a cargo that represented years of wealth collected from Spain's American colonies. The fleet never made it far. Waiting offshore was a British squadron commanded by Commodore Charles Wager. Britain and Spain were enemies in the War of the Spanish Succession, and Wager had a clear mission: intercept the treasure fleet before it reached Europe. As daylight faded on June 8th, the British ships closed in. What followed became known as the Battle of Baru. Cannons thundered across the Caribbean. Smoke engulfed the ships. Wood splintered under relentless bombardment. For nearly 2 hours, the San José exchanged fire with British warships. The British hoped to capture the treasure intact. Destroying the ship would mean losing the very prize they had sailed halfway around the world to seize. Then, without warning, everything changed. A tremendous explosion tore through the San José. Witnesses reported seeing flames erupt from the ship before it disappeared beneath the sea. Within minutes, one of the most powerful galleons in the Spanish fleet had sunk. Of the roughly 600 people believed to have been aboard, only a handful survived. Centuries later, historians still debate the exact cause of the explosion. One widely accepted theory is that British cannon fire ignited the ship's gunpowder magazine, triggering a catastrophic blast. Another possibility is that an accidental fire spread to the stored gunpowder during the chaos of battle. The historical records confirm that the San José exploded and sank during the battle. What they do not conclusively explain is why the explosion occurred. That distinction is important. Separating evidence from speculation is one of the greatest challenges in maritime archaeology. San José vanished beneath the waves, so did an enormous fortune. Gold, silver, emeralds, coins, jewels, weapons, personal belongings, official documents. Hundreds of years of history disappeared into the depths of the Caribbean. The British won the battle, but they lost the treasure. And for more than 3 centuries, the sea refused to give it back. You might think that once the battle was over, someone simply sailed back and recovered the treasure. But the Caribbean is vast. The sea doesn't preserve maps. Storms change the ocean floor. And over time, the San José's exact location faded into history. For nearly 300 years, no one knew where it had gone. Then, a new generation of explorers began a hunt unlike anything the world had ever seen. If you knew that somewhere beneath the Caribbean Sea lay a treasure worth billions, where would you start? The problem wasn't a lack of motivation, it was a lack of certainty. The San José had disappeared in 1708, but no one had recorded its exact resting place. Survivors were few. The battle had taken place at sea. Ocean currents shifted wreckage. Storms altered the seabed. And as the decades turned into centuries, the ship's location slowly faded into legend. Yet the search never truly stopped. On December 5, 2015, Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos announced that a team of researchers had located what they believed to be the wreck of the San José. The discovery was made during an expedition involving the Colombian Navy, marine archaeologists, and international experts. The exact coordinates were kept secret, for an obvious reason. If the location became public, treasure hunters could attempt to reach the site before authorities. The wreck lies at a depth of approximately 600 meters, or nearly 2,000 feet below the surface. That's far beyond the limits of conventional scuba diving. Only specialized deep-sea submersibles and remotely operated vehicles can safely explore it. As cameras descended into the darkness, they captured something extraordinary. Bronze cannons, fragments of wooden hull, ceramic artifacts, and one detail that excited historians more than anything else. The cannons were decorated with engraved dolphins, a distinctive feature recorded in historical descriptions of the San José. For archaeologists, this was one of the strongest pieces of evidence that they had located the legendary galleon. Finding the San José turned out to be the easy part, recovering it. That's where the real challenge began, because beneath the Caribbean Sea lies not just a fortune, but one of the most complicated legal battles in maritime history. And until those disputes are resolved, the treasure may remain exactly where it has rested since 1708. Most treasure stories end the same way. Someone finds the treasure, lifts it from the ground, and becomes rich. The San José story is different, because even though its location is believed to be known, no one can agree on who owns it. For more than a decade, lawyers, historians, archaeologists, governments, and even descendants of those connected to the ship have debated a question that has no simple answer. Who does history belong to? So, after more than 300 years, the San José has been located, its story has been reconstructed, its treasure is believed to still be there. Yet no one has opened its cargo holds, which raises one final question. Will the world ever see what's inside? Or is this one treasure destined to remain beneath the sea forever? Every great mystery teaches us something. The San José reminds us that history isn't always buried because it was forgotten. Sometimes, it's buried because humanity still hasn't decided what to do with it. Maybe one day the world will witness the full recovery of the San José. Or maybe the greatest treasure ever lost will remain exactly where it has rested since 1708, silent, untouched, and protected by the sea. Either way, its story is far from over. If you enjoyed this video and want more true stories about history's greatest mysteries, forgotten disasters, legendary heists, and unsolved events, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. Should the San José be recovered for the world to see, or should it remain untouched forever? Your answer might be more complicated than it first seems. Until next time, stay curious.